New York Met trade talks intensifying with a division rival, as that rival is the Miami Marlins, with three of their pitchers having been rumored to come to the Mets, which of course would bulk up the pitching staff, but fans have mixed opinions on the topic, liking some of the players and disliking others. That's exactly what we're going to go over only here on Mets Digest. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. We're going to talk these three players from the Marlins, but first we got to talk about some subscribers, and that being the fact that 69.2% of you that watch these videos aren't one. So please do me a favor, do us a favor here at Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. And the first player, you guys are very, very familiar of this guy. The Mets are in, quote, active negotiations, end quote, for Sandy Alcantara. Adam made a video on this titled, No Way They Do This, back on Saturday. He details his takes, and I've discussed my takes on Alcantara plenty of times before, as here are his statistics. No, do not go and get this guy. I know he was a former Cy Young Award winner, and that's who you're trying to trade for. You think you can get that Cy Young candidate back, and you think you can make this guy great all of a sudden. Nope, not happening. He's got a 6.36 ERA and a whip near 1.50. You're not going to make him anything more than he is right now. Unfortunately for Sandy Alcantara, I believe the prime is in the past. It's in the rearview mirror. No way. I do not want Alcantara. He's also going to be a high asking price for, because he has that Cy Young name to him. So the answer is absolutely not. Adam and I agree. Nope, no on Sandy Alcantara. So quickly, let's go ahead and turn it to another guy, because we've talked a lot about Sandy Alcantara, but we have two other guys that we really haven't discussed as much. Starting off with Anthony Bender, as the Mets have been linked to him, the Marlins reliever. Grant Young of Sports Illustrated says he makes sense in an article titled "Two Under the Radar Relievers Make Sense for the Mets per an Insider," and that's exactly where we're going to go. Let's turn it over to Grant Young, who says, quote, the second player is Miami Marlins pitcher Anthony Bender, who has an extremely solid 2.19 ERA in 37 innings pitched this year. Bender has emerged as an elite bullpen arm for Miami, and so long as they remain sellers at the deadline, he could be a great option for New York. Now, as we've discussed before, the Marlins have been red hot, so it still is a bit of a question if they're going to be sellers, but they seem a little bit too far out of it. It looks like they are indeed going to be sellers. So with that, let's talk Anthony Bender. And as you can tell, that ERA has gone even further down since Grant Young wrote that article. A 1.83 ERA in 44 1/3 innings pitched, less than a 1 whip. Very, very solid option overall. He is a guy I definitely would like. Bender is a known name. He's been around before. He has been talked about in trade deadlines previously. He's been talked about with trade rumors in the past, and I think he would be a great addition for this New York Met team. Similarly, I don't have the stats for him, but he reminds me a lot of David Bednar, both B last names. I really like Anthony Bednar. I think he would be a great addition for this New York Met team. You could possibly put him at the setup man in the 8th, but I would more like him in the 7th, and then you see what you can do in the 8th. I don't know if he has that star power to him to be the setup man, but you can very well try him in the 8th, and honestly, it might work out well, especially because the Mets need bullpen. Go ahead and check out my last video about the multiple updates. Huascar Brazovan is now in AAA, and the bullpen is just continuing to get thinner and thinner by the day. David Stearns has to pull the trigger sooner or later. He's got to go get someone. Bednar would be one of those really solid options, and I haven't said that about a lot of players. I've harped on Luis Robert, I've harped on Cedric Mullins, Sandy Alcantara even earlier in this video, but there are a couple of bullpen arms that I would really like the Mets to go out and look for and acquire. Anthony Bender is certainly one of them. I truly do hope that he is on that Met radar, and that hopefully the Mets go out and get him. Now, here's the third player that we're going to talk about here from the Marlins, and that is Edward Cabrera, as it is another trade rumor, that being that he is linked to the New York Mets. So let's turn it over to Pat Ragazzo, also of Sports Illustrated, who is an insider, adding that Edward Cabrera is going to be added to this ever-growing list of potential pitchers ending up here in Flushing. Right now, it's only been Gregory Soto, so let's see what David Stearns does. As Ragazzo says, the New York Mets could still add a starting pitcher before the 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time trade deadline on Thursday, July 31st, just about a day away. The Mets have checked in on several arms, from Mitch Keller of the Pittsburgh Pirates to old friend Luis Severino of the Athletics, as they try to improve their pitching staff prior to Thursday. You can now add another name to the long list. The Mets have inquired about Miami Marlins right-handed starting pitcher Edward Cabrera, as sources told Mets on Sports Illustrated on Monday. Now, Cabrera is a guy that really well fits David Stearns' motto. You see the tweet here from SNY. David Stearns was asked if the Mets could make a, quote, major acquisition to the starting rotation at the trade deadline. He replied, I don't know how many raise the ceiling type players are going to be traded. If those guys are available, we'll be involved. But you know David Stearns, you know him from his time with the Brewers, you know him from the 2024 trade deadline where the biggest splash player that he acquired was Jesse Winker. He's not a guy that goes out and acquires splash guys. He acquires the right guys at the trade deadline. And I think obviously, Bednar would be a phenomenal acquisition. He would be that right guy. But I don't mind Edward Cabrera, as let's do another pro-con from SNY's Anthony McCarron. We did this with Mitch Keller, and he does it again, the SNY guy for Cabrera. He says, quote, despite his enormous promise, Cabrera, 27 years of age, has struggled to find consistency or even pitch consistently. This year, however, he might be blossoming. Entering play Sunday, Cabrera had a 3.61 ERA in 16 starts. His overall ERA would be much more attractive, 2.78, if you drop two April duds, in which he gave up a total of 10 earned runs in just 8 innings in starts against the Diamondbacks and Dodgers. Now, I disagree with McCarron there. You can't do that. You can't just say, oh, well, if these two starts never happened, they happened. I understand why he's using this in a pro-con list, but these starts did happen for Cabrera. His ERA is 3.61. It's not 2.78. But I do understand his point. He's saying if it wasn't for two really, really bad starts, look how even better that ERA would be. It'd be sub 3. In an 11-start span from May 4th to July 6th, Cabrera had a 2.11 ERA. That's really, really good. His walk rate of 3.3 per 9 would be the lowest of his career over a full season and is not terrible overall. And he's already delivered 82 1/3 innings. It has increased far much so from that. He has never reached 100 innings in the majors before, but he will this year, assuming he does not miss time because of an injury. He's close now. He's at 94 as we speak. We'll take a look at the stats in just a little bit. As McCarron goes on to continue with the pros, saying about his pitch selection. His changeup, which he throws the most, averages 93.8 miles an hour. That's how you know this guy throws hard. It's the 4th hardest changeup in the MLB. He's also increased the use of his 83-mile-an-hour curveball, and that's helped him. Opponents have a batting average of just 129 on at-bats that end on the curve. Cabrera also has a fastball that averages nearly 97 miles an hour, though at times he has trouble commanding it, as you can tell from the walk rate, with 3.3 being the lowest of his career. That may explain why he throws it the least out of any of his 5 pitches, including a sinker and a slider. Another pro, Cabrera, who's making $1.95 million this season, comes with club control for 3 years beyond this one. That means he isn't a free agent until after the 2028 season, going into 2029. He's no rental. So he wouldn't be that bad of an option, but because he has so much control and because he's probably better statistically than a guy like Mitch Keller, you're going to have to give up a lot for him. We've talked about those trades, those mock trades with Mitch Keller. The Mets would be giving up a lot in those, and one of them with O'Neal Cruz and Mitch Keller, you had Jet Williams in that trade. So I don't think Cabrera is going to come cheap. As let's turn it over now to the cons that McCarron has, saying, what do you believe about his season? Breakout or mirage? And what about his injury history, which is a part of the reason he hasn't reached triple digits in innings pitched in any big league season? A shoulder injury limited him both 23 and 24, and he left his last start before the All-Star break this season with discomfort in his right elbow. A lot of arm problems, elbow problems, shoulder problems. He went for an MRI and it came back clean. He is scheduled to start Tuesday when the Marlins play the Padres. He ended up pitching. Because he has so much club control remaining, though, through arbitration, he's much more valuable than a free agent to be. But that also makes him more expensive in terms of trade chips. I was just mentioning this, especially in a market that could be thin in available starting pitchers. Cabrera appears to have a lofty ceiling too. Yes, the club control is both a pro and a con. Weird, right? It is what it is. It definitely is a pro and a con, because when you talk about a guy who has such a ridiculed injury history, you have control of him for a while. You can't even get him off your payroll until 2029, the earliest, which is a problem because if he's going to be injured for the next 3 seasons, you just traded a lot of pieces because he has that control. You have to give up more. You just traded a lot of pieces for a guy who's barely even pitching for your ball club. Again, he's not a rental, which is a risk you take with a guy with injuries. ways. That's why, in some senses, Mitch Keller would be a better fit than Cabrera. It all depends on the package in return. I personally would rather Cabrera over Keller, but there are certain instances that I'd rather Keller because the package in return is probably going to be less compared to a younger guy who has the same amount of control. McCarron continues his con saying, and there's also this. The Marlins entered play on Sunday only 5 games out of a playoff spot, which has gotten even better, sitting at 46 and 51 and in third place in the NL East. They perhaps don't profile as everybody's most likely playoff team this season, but their lot in baseball life doesn't exactly demand that they trade a pitcher like Cabrera right now. They could very well build around him. He's got control through 2028. Either he's not a pending free agent. If the Marlins trade away controllable young studs, who's going to fuel their ongoing rebuild? They're in a rebuild state right now. You want to rebuild around your young players. Cabrera is one of your young players. Why would you get rid of him in a rebuild state? Then again, if they do trade a player with this much control, who they presumably know better than anyone else, what exactly does that mean? What does that mean about Cabrera? That could mean the Marlins don't value him very well because he has so much control over him. He's a young guy, and they're still opting to get rid of him in the midst of a rebuild when they want young guys to build their team around. Let's finish this off with McCarron's verdict. He says, quote, the Mets could use Cabrera, who couldn't really. But this feels like a price tag that will soar quickly unless the Diamondbacks and Twins flood the market with starters too. Teams might be reluctant to part with top prospects because of his injury history, and that's exactly what it's going to take. We don't have any mock trades to go over today, but it will take probably guys in our top 5. But the talent is there. If Cabrera costs one premium prospect, it's worth thinking about because of his age, the remaining control, 4 pennant races total. And because he's shown ability against big league beasts, Cabrera isn't just a hopeful on a prospect list thriving in a league made up of generally lesser players. So I like the way McCarron describes that. He does a good job talking about what you can get out of Cabrera. He overall probably wants him, but I think, again, as it is with most of these prospects, or most of these pieces, I should say, that the Mets go and possibly trade for, the package has to be right. You can't be giving up too much for either a rental in some cases, or in the case of Keller and Cabrera, a guy who you don't know what you're getting. You know more of what you're getting from Mitch Keller because he's done it for so long. You know you're getting an innings eater who's going to have a somewhat high ERA, probably hovering around the 4s, give or take. But with Cabrera, you don't know what you're going to get because of all these injury problems. Now, he's having a nice year this year, 4-5, but the record doesn't really matter because it's the Marlins. 18 games started. You heard that he had a little bit of an injury problem, 3.35 ERA. I could assume it's around a 2.6, 2.5 if you were to get rid of those 2 starts that we heard of earlier. 94 innings, nearly 100 would be the first time in his career he does that, and a 123 whip. So definitely a career year for Cabrera. He's looking really good, but I question it. And again, it goes back to my overarching theme, and I hate to say this. I want to make a definitive stance, but it all depends on what it would cost to go get Cabrera if I'm on board or not. So let me know what you think down below. Do you agree? Does it matter what we give up, or are you all in on Cabrera, or are you all out on Cabrera? Give me your thoughts. Let me know everything down below. Adam and I got you covered with all the rumors. Anything that David Stearns does, if he pulls the trigger and makes a trade, we'll let you know only here on Mets Digest. But unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you in this update about 3 Marlins pitchers. One that I would absolutely love in Anthony Bender, one that I don't want in Sandy Alcantara, and the third that I don't know because of the return package in Edward Cabrera. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you today. Thank you so much as always for watching, and let's go Mets.